If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine, and maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them, from disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high-quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
You seem to still be up there somewhere.
Maybe I am. There are flying saucers.
Supposing they're Martians or something in there.
Hey guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Asherz, and this is...
Tobias.
Tobias, how was your weekend?
It was good. I did the same thing I do every weekend, and I'm going to be doing every weekend for a little while, which was working on this new book. I am like neck deep in the Lake Michigan Mothman chapter. So I've just been going through old cases and kind of deciding what to include and what not to include, because there's more than one book's worth of material just on its own, right? And so if this book is going to be about sort of the entirety of the Mothman phenomenon, then I can't include everything just from the Midwest, because that's its own book right there. So I have to distill it down into just the most useful information, which is, and they don't tell you this unless you actually go to school for English or creative writing. But that's the hardest part about writing. It's not the volume in terms of creation, right? Like actually getting words on the page, that's the easy part. It is trimming that down into just the words you need that is most difficult. So, I feel good about it, but it's not as easy as it sounds. Otherwise, just trying to get outside and stay active. I've gone hiking with Emily the past couple of weekends, so that's been fun. Saw some white baneberry. I don't know if you've seen this before. It's a weird looking plant, and it's called doll's eyes colloquially, because it looks all fucking weird, right? And it's super poisonous. And if you eat it, you might have a heart attack and die. So definitely don't eat it. But it looks like something straight out of like Lovecraft, like it looks just real weird. So that was fun. Like that was cool. I didn't eat any. So that's good news, right? Like good news for fans of the podcast. I didn't eat any poison berries this weekend. But bad news for people who hate me. So sorry, people who hate me. Better luck next time.
Baneberry is pretty neat, actually. But yeah, it will kill you. Like a lot of things in nature. Know what you're eating before you put it in your mouth.
Right. I mean, just good advice in general.
Oh man. So
yes.
While you were sharing your weekend, our producer Nate, our personal Men in Black, reminded us that this episode comes out on today's 9/11. And
oh boy.
Well, you were talking about Mothman, and I just want to remind people that no winged humanoids were seen in the events of 9/11 before, during, or immediately after in that area. That is a popular thing that goes around every so often, that the Mothman caused 9/11 or was warning about 9/11 or whatever. But none of those theories are substantiated. So
yes, and that's the kind of thing. Now, certainly not everybody who I think falls in the trap of interpreting Mothman sightings through that lens of disaster is guilty of this. But certainly any professional in this field should know better. And so if you see like somebody who claims to be a professional or somebody in the paranormal, who is repeating something like Mothman being at 9/11 or um, you know otherwise being connected to it, just remind yourself that that person is trash and they are exploiting a tragedy
Yeah.
for their own personal gain. And I can't possibly be more disgusted with people who do that, and nor can I condemn those actions enough, because it just is offensive on every level. Don't do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not going to name names this episode, but maybe I will one of these days behind a paywall, specifically on our new Patreon account. So, as you guys know, I know, right? As you guys know, I've had Patreon for quite a while, and man, do I suck at it sometimes. Well, it's hard to keep up with. It's hard to keep up with this one person. It's hard to keep up with because you guys love to give me your money, but then hate to communicate with me about what you want to give me your money for. So we have kind of rebranded the Patreon a little bit. So now it is an On Wednesdays We Talk Weird Patreon, which makes sense. Doesn't mean that the investigative stuff won't be there anymore. It definitely will. And not just from me, from Tobias, or, whatever it is that we're working on. But it's going to be really exciting and a lot of really cool stuff. So if you want to hear us say shit behind a paywall, patreon.com/ what is it going to be? Wednesdays Talk. That's what it is.
Nice.
That's the link. And we're definitely going to update it periodically. But, let us know. Let us know. We're still open to suggestions on what it is you guys kind of want to see or want to have happen over there. But we do have a pretty good list of tiers. Go check that out. At minimum, right now you'll have access to almost all of every On Wednesdays We Talk Weird ad-free. So that's all over there. And then anything that came before it is just my Patreon converted over to On Wednesdays We Talk Weird. That's it. Super exciting. Anyway, you want to hear about my weekends?
Yes.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
I had to think about it for a second, but I landed on yes. I'm committed to yes.
Do I want to know what she did this weekend? I won't be funny. I'll be serious for a minute. I went and hung out at the cemetery. So that was cool, actually. By myself. And let me tell you something. It's totally not weird to go hang out at the cemetery by yourself until someone else shows up. Then it's weird.
Yeah.
Okay. Then it gets weird and you're like, oh, this is weird. So it was a beautiful weekend, here in Ohio, and I wanted to get outside and do something. And while we have a lot of wonderful parks in the area, I couldn't help but think about the tombstone that I know I've mentioned to you guys before on the show that somebody had brought to my attention after I gave my Andrew Cold talk at the Woodville UFO Festival, and how it had mentioned that the people who died were in contact with aliens, basically. And I'm like, there's a lot of really weird tombstones out there. We definitely have a lot of them in Ohio. So I thought, it'd be kind of neat to go visit an old cemetery and just go read the fucking tombstones. Maybe I'd find a mystery, I did not find a mystery, but it was an okay time. Like I said, it's a very quiet, very really off the beaten path kind of cemetery in the middle of the suburbs. You'd have no idea it was there unless you knew it was there. And nobody's ever there, ever. And it's quiet. Cemeteries are nice. Cemeteries are nice places to go on walks, to meditate, to think, to do nothing. And I was having a good time with myself and the various dead people underneath my feet until, like I said, people showed up. And I was like, oh, great. Now I look like a fucking weirdo.
Well, what were they doing?
You know what? That's the weird part, is that They never even got out of their car. Like, they pulled up, they parked, and I'm like on the opposite end of the cemetery to my car, which isn't very far. Like I said, it's a very small cemetery, and I start like, and I'm like, oh great, now I got to stand here where I was, pretending that I'm looking at this one headstone, right? Like, this is somebody I know. Because there is a mixture. So the graves there are as old as 1803, but like as new as yesterday. Well, I don't think yesterday, but they're new. So thankfully I was by like kind of the newer ones, and I was like, oh, and I got to pretend that this is my grandma or something, right? Because now I look fucking weird.
Well, yeah.
And I started kind of making my way back over to my car, just kind of leisurely. And they never got out. Eventually, they just left. So I don't know what they were doing.
Were they smoking weed? Like,
I don't know. They didn't offer me any, fucking rude.
That is rude.
And they could have been making out. I don't know what they were doing. It was weird. And here I am worried about me looking like the fucking weirdo,
Right.
But
wow.
Either way, I did go and visit the cemetery. That's what I did. Check it out sometime.
Fun.
It's not weird. It's totally normal.
It's not. Actually, people used to hang out in cemeteries a lot. They were popular picnic spots because they're quiet and peaceful, and there's usually some nice landscaping. Yeah. And so up until last century, I guess, the 20th century, really like the second half of the 20th century, I think is when it started being thought of as morbid or strange. But you don't have to go that far back in history to when it was relatively normal for people to go hang out in cemeteries. And if you're not hurting anybody, who cares? If there's any place to mind your own damn business, it is the cemetery. Like, you shouldn't be worried about what other people are doing out there, unless obviously, they're committing vandalism or something. So.
Well, and I mean, people don't just put, their names and the dates on these headstones. I mean, if they didn't want you to fucking read them, then don't put, father, brother, and don't put cool quotes, and don't put pictures on them,
Well, if I happen to go to visit the headstone of somebody that I know, and there was somebody just admiring it, I would not be upset in any way. Like, that would be the least upsetting thing I can think of happening in a cemetery. Why would you care? I'm sure most normal people would be like, oh, yeah, no, it is a really nice headstone, like, he was a great guy, he deserved it, or whatever, So, yeah, what the hell?
Right, at the end of the day, those things are fucking expensive.
They are expensive.
I hope more people than just family get to admire them, and those people are me. Maybe I had considered that. Maybe the car that pulled in, maybe the headstone I was at was theirs, or their people.
Right.
And they're like, who is that woman? So, whatever. Anyway, it was a good time. They really are peaceful places. And there's really some very nice ones out there. Like you said, the landscaping's nice. We have a historic one here in Dayton, Woodland Cemetery. And, of course, it's got all kinds of spooky ghost stories. But it also has, it's on top of a hill, like a big hill, and you can see all of Dayton. It's the highest point in Dayton, Ohio. So that's pretty neat,
Sure.
And then there's a nice pond, hang out. Look at some ducks, some fish in the pond. Anyway, that's the point. It's not weird. And I guess I have to justify it because, man, I felt fucking weird.
Well, you shouldn't. We should bring back hanging in cemeteries and it not being weird. It's totally fine. I mean, there are some really cool historic cemeteries around. And they actively encourage people to visit them. Like, there's nothing, why would there be anything wrong with that? Like, for instance, by us in Madison is the Forest Hill Cemetery, and they have some really old plots. They go all the way back to the Civil War. Now, I don't know whose family you're going to upset by going and visiting these historic monuments and Civil War plots, because they're a piece of history and they're for everybody. Nobody owns history. So as long as you're there, and there's a reason that nobody charges admission to go to a cemetery. They're open when they're open. Anybody is allowed. These are not these are public spaces. Like they're not private areas where people are disallowed from hanging out. So yeah, just go to the cemetery if you want.
Yeah, check it out. Well, and like I said, some of the graves there, they're as old as 1803. That's like the country was barely old enough to drink at that point, you know?
Yeah,
That's pretty
Wisconsin
crazy.
wasn't a state in 1803.
Right? It's crazy. So it is a neat place, and I definitely checked it out. And but otherwise, I've been sickly. I've been sick, so I've been dealing with that. And you know, when you're sick, you don't want to bring it on other people. So a cemetery is a great place to be able to get out of the house and not, because everybody was going to be on the hiking trails this weekend.
Oh
You know,
yeah,
it was a fucking nice week. It was like a 60, 70-degree day out. It was nice, you know.
perfect hiking weather. Yeah.
Right, perfect hiking weather. But if you're sick, perfect cemetery weather. And then if you die from your sickly, you're already there.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to worry about getting anybody else sick because they, I mean, they have bigger things to worry about. So, sure.
But maybe it's kind of rude, right? Because like the same sick that I have, like I'm gonna get over it, but a lot of those people probably died from it.
Oh, maybe.
They're pissed off.
Just
Maybe
sitting
that's what
around
all
all
the
mad.
maybe that's what all the hauntings in my house are about lately. Huh. Pissed off the spirits. Anyway.
People people that are just mad that you live in 2024 and you don't die of people don't die of the flu that often anymore,
Right. Like fuck you guys.
right?
I was like 14 when I died from the cold.
Yeah. It's like, dude, I literally pooped myself to death.
And you guys take pretty pink liquid to quail yours. Anyway,
Right.
that's what I did. That's what I did. So I do not have news this week. My news is your news. So we have
Whoa.
mutual news.
Shared news. Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, let's get into some news then. Let me pull this story up. Now, I don't know how many people have seen this so far because I got to tell you, I don't think that the video we're about to talk about really took off, and I think there's a real obvious reason for that, which of course we will cover shortly. So, the news today is about a video received by Lon Strickler over at Phantoms and Monsters from somebody claiming that several of their friends witnessed the Chicago Mothman flying around during an evening cookout in Chicago's Lakeview neighborhood on June 10th, 2023. So this was reportedly filmed on a rooftop of an apartment building in that neighborhood, so on Lakeshore Drive. And it's real difficult to see. Now, of course, this video is embedded in an article that I published for the Singular Fortean Society. So you can check it out on singularfortean.com. You can check it out on Phantoms and Monsters. I'm sure we'll have a link to it in the show notes. But if you look at this video, it's very difficult to discern what people are reacting to because the object is below the skyline like the entire time. So it's sort of camouflaged against all the buildings in the background. But if you look carefully, and there is a modified version on Phantoms and Monsters, it has added some red circles and things, red circles and ominous music and the other sort of accoutrement that you would expect to find with a cryptid video. But you can make something out if you look really carefully. And yeah, there's something that looks like a large bird flying around and some young adults reacting to it in, I'm just going to say it, a hilarious way. Like there is no way. Like I listened to this right away. Because Lon and I have been colleagues in this investigation for 7 years. And so, we send each other stuff. Like if I get something, I'll send it over. If he gets something, he'll send it over. And so he sends me this video, and I of course I watched it right away. And it was a compelling video until I watched it with the sound on. And then when I watched it with the sound on, you hear these young adults, and somebody's just like, I don't like that. And then somebody else is just like, I'm scared.
I don't like that. I am scared.
In a way, in a way. And yeah, believe me, I'm doing the video justice with
Yeah.
with my impression of it. I really am. So make sure when you watch it to watch it with the sound on. And so what it reminded me of was I have 3 nieces and a nephew, and they are all teenagers. And when they are just joking around, like that's the voice they use. Like it's a specific, like sarcastic, messing around, young adult voice. And I recognized it right away. I was like, oh, that's the voice that like, all the kids in my family use when they're just fucking around and they're not being serious. And I feel like most people who are parents or aunts and uncles or whatever are going to recognize this tone right away and just be like, oh yeah, that's young people goofing off. And so that really threw a wrench into it for me. So should I get into the testimony of what they said happened? I pretty much already summed it up. There's some people hanging out on a rooftop. They're grilling out. A couple of them leave. While they're gone, the people remaining on the rooftop say that they see this enormous flying humanoid that's like 10 feet tall with like a 15-foot wingspan flying around the building, and that it scared them. And then the person who signed in the report said it scared them so badly that now they don't want to go on my rooftop anymore. So great.
And that rooftop, let me tell you, it's the shit up there,
Oh, yeah. No, it's nice. Like, yeah, fucking Smaug could be flying around this rooftop, breathing fire on everybody. And I'd be like, I don't know. It's a pretty good view. I mean, this is hard to get in Chicago. So,
so the fact that they don't want to go up there anymore, it's not because it reeks like piss and there's broken glass all over the place. It's I've been on a rooftop or two in my day. Anyway, right. But maybe those are Dayton rooftops. I don't know. Yeah, so I remember seeing Lon post on social media looking for somebody who could help edit the video to make it better, probably to slow it down and add aesthetic, right?
Yeah, basically.
No, in all seriousness, at minimum to slow it down, that's valuable. That makes sense. That's what I would do, right? If I receive a video, I go through it frame by frame. And I was like, okay, here we go. And then, it comes out, and Tobias, you sent it to me and you asked me what I thought about it. And I did not initially listen to it with the sound on. And just seeing the video the first time around, it's okay. I get, it depends, right? Depends on what the story is that goes with it. The statement mixed with the video with no audio whatsoever. It's like, I don't know. Okay, maybe they saw something. I think it still looks very bird-like, whatever it is. Whatever it is flapping some type of wings.
Oh, yeah.
You can tell that much, and that's really all you can tell from it. It's just as good as any other cryptid video that you can possibly think of in your lifetime, except for, I don't know, maybe it's no Patterson Gimlin film,
No, totally.
But then you were like, but did you listen to it? And I was like, okay, well, let's listen to it. And then I listened to it, and I'm like, oh yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah. So, let's talk about that. The claim that they're making. And let's mention that part. The person sending in the report, sending in the video, did not see it.
Right.
They were not there while the video was recorded. It was simply their friends that came down. I don't know why he wasn't hanging out on his own rooftop, but whatever. They came down.
According to their testimony, they were not there.
Right.
And the reason was that they had to go get more chilled wine.
Oh, well, yeah. You can't have warm wine on the rooftop in Chicago,
No, what would Mothman think?
Likely story. That's why he was there. He was making sure.
Right.
He's like, somebody get the chilled wine. So of course this is already not a fantastic report because it's third-hand information. But the claim that's being made in the statement, which you guys can go read on the article, I don't think we need to read it word for word. Let's give you reason to go to Singular Fortean, right? But it's saying that this humanoid creature was flying around them. It was like staring them down, and like that's not what I see in the video.
No, not at all.
But if that's what if that's what was happening, let's just say that's what was going on, and we only got 3 seconds because I think that's I don't know how long the clip is. It's like 5 seconds maybe, which is also suspicious. Why this was an event that was going on for at least a minute. Why isn't there more? But okay, whatever. I digress. So you have this horrifying winged humanoid creature flying around, staring you down, and your reaction is, "I'm scared."
Right.
That's not how that works.
No, none of it makes any sense. So here's what I think happened. I think that this group of people were hanging out on a rooftop and they saw a totally normal bird that they absolutely recognized as a bird. And they decided to record this thing happening because let's face it, like that's the first thing people do in situations like this is somebody's going to grab their phone and try to record it. And it was just like this joke. And so there's maybe 5 seconds of this video that ended up to like being at all usable. During which, of course, you hear the "I don't like that. I'm scared," and everybody involved knows this is a bird. Everybody is obviously kidding around. A year later, Unsolved Mysteries comes out. Now, I don't know if when this was recorded, they were aware of the Mothman sightings in the Midwest. They very easily could have been because a lot of people in Chicago are at this point. But I don't know if they were or not. So maybe they were, and at the time they were joking around, being like, "Oh, that bird's the Mothman. Oh, I'm so scared." Or whatever their deal was. Maybe they were just joking around because it was a big bird. Doesn't really matter. What matters is a year later, Unsolved Mysteries comes out, and they see an opportunity to have some fun. And so they reach out to one of the people on there. I don't know why I don't get more of this stuff, by the way. People almost never reach out to me with obvious bullshit. And I don't know if it's because of how I carry myself or if I'm just lucky, but I almost never get obvious bullshit like this. And when I do, most people don't end up seeing it because I filter it out. Like it's just noise. Like it's not news. It's just noise. Like I don't believe in the efficacy of the 24-hour news cycle when it comes to actually informing people. So I don't participate, and I don't generally publish things that I receive myself if I think that they're not authentic. Anyway, so that's what I think happened. I think that they had this video for whatever reason, and they saw an opportunity to just play a prank or something and have a laugh. And here we are.
Yeah.
I that's exactly what I think happened.
Yeah. And I mean, I more or less agree with that. I mean, I think the specifics of it could change, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that I don't think in the moment while they were witnessing this thing, I very much think that what they saw was a bird. Some people really like birds, and some people will pull their fucking phone out and take a picture, take a video of the bird. On the flip side of that, you got a group of people hanging out. Some people really don't fucking like birds. And to me, I don't like that, I'm scared sounds like a young girl trying to be cutesy and be like, I don't like birds. Oh, I hate it.
Right. That's the voice.
It is right. Exactly. I know girls. I am one.
There you go.
And that's, again, the specifics doesn't matter. I don't think they saw a Mothman. That's the point.
Right.
I don't think that's what this is in the video. I think that, somebody had posted, there's a pretty sizable group on Facebook. It's Mothman sightings. And somebody had posted about how come there's no pictures or video of this thing?
Mhm.
Right? Especially 2024, everybody's got a camera. And we hear that a lot with different cryptids, and there's always an excuse, right? Because we want to believe. So we'll make up something. But genuinely, in the case of the Mothman, I think that, if anybody thinks it could be caught on video, they kind of, it just tells me they don't know anything about the phenomena really. Because it's not like that. It doesn't work that way. Just,
Sure. I don't think that what we're looking at is a purely physical phenomenon. I think that it's more complicated than that.
yes.
When you start to look at the witness testimony and some of the associated high strangeness, and I think that if you are willing to allow for the idea that what this Mothman phenomenon represents is something more than just in undiscovered biological species, which I think is all but impossible at this point. I don't think there's anything about this that says undiscovered biological species. Anyway, if you're willing to allow that this is something stranger than just some undiscovered animal species, then I think that you have to also allow for the possibility that it plays by different rules, and that you're not likely to be able to do anything to it that it doesn't want you to do,
Yeah.
up to and including video and photographs, et cetera. Because we don't even know if this thing has a physical presence in the way that we conceive of, um, you know, normal species having a physical presence. For all we know, it's like 90% psychic and then like 10% poltergeist stuff when it needs to interact with the environment or something similar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, of course we don't have a photograph of it. It's not wildlife.
Yeah. And I know we sound like pretentious dickheads, right? Of course, there's no photograph. There can't be because the high strangeness factor of the case. I get it. I completely understand. I get where people are coming from. But, on the flip side of that, my point I was kind of getting at is that I'm really kind of surprised this didn't blow up more, because I think people want video or photographic evidence of Mothman. Of course, they want that. So I'm really surprised. It's been a hot topic lately with the Unsolved Mysteries thing. I would think more people would be talking about this, and they're not. So we are.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, just from my perspective, I think most people who probably saw it, especially if they watched it with the sound on,
Yeah.
I mean, it's very much a nothing burger. Like, you're just getting served up a big
Oh yeah.
ol' like ice cold nothing burger
Oh
of
yeah.
a freaking video. And so it's not like a big surprise to me that it didn't take off. I kind of didn't expect it to. Um, and that's probably better that it didn't, frankly. And I don't want anybody to interpret this as me passing any sort of judgment on Lon or anything. I'm definitely not, and I don't think that I said anything that would make it sound like I was, but I just want to be clear on it. He publishes everything that he gets. That's his style, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's not what I do personally, but professionally as colleagues, I'm not judging him for doing that. So I want to be clear. Like, I think that is an approach that is valid, that people can take. I just choose not to, for the reasons I have already discussed at length. So
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, but that's our take. Tobias, you kind of surveyed a couple of people, in your article, and it seems like most of us are on the same page. It seems like all of us in your article are on the same page.
yes.
But I think that that's probably going to be a pretty popular opinion across the board, with anybody who, isn't. I'm just going to be nice and just say that. I'm just going to leave it there.
Yeah, I don't anticipate a lot of people seeing it and thinking it's anything other than people just having fun
Yeah.
playing a prank or something.
Sure.
And I really do think that's why it hasn't taken off, because people look at it, they see the context and they go, and and they just go, this is nothing. I mean, people in my experience are more discerning than we give them credit for. And I think that most people are capable of seeing through something like this. And that's why it doesn't catch on, because nobody wants the hoax. Nobody wants to pay a lot of attention to the obvious hoax.
Mm-hmm.
And so obvious hoaxes don't do really well when they are immediately outed or they are immediately obvious.
Yeah.
So
I think that's where my surprise came from, that it didn't blow up further, is because I think I expected people to run with it a little bit more, and I'm really proud of you guys.
Yeah, great job, everybody. I mean, I tried to come out with the article pretty quickly too,
Mm-hmm.
Because I did want to get out in front of anybody who would maybe try to use it for misinformation or
Yeah.
anything like that, anything that I would find to be less than ethical, because you know how people are. They, of course, if they think it'll give them clicks or views or whatever, they'll take the most salacious narrative they can and apply it to anything. So, but that didn't happen here, and and I'm glad.
And to go off what you were saying about Lon, if you go read Lon's article about it, it's just very cut and dry. This is the report that I received. This is the video that's with it. That's what Lon's website is, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Nope,
nothing wrong with that at all.
No, it's a great resource. He gives you everything that he gets with very little judgment, and leaves it up to you to decide, and that can be a very valuable approach when it comes to disseminating this information for people.
But here's something that I noticed about this video and other videos like it, other photos like it. And I think it's an issue that we're not all talking about. I think we're really overlooking the real monsters when we see this evidence. And I think you're going to agree with me. Every time we have something like this, there's one thing that you see almost every time, and it's the red circle. You guys,
the red circle.
When are we going to open up our eyes and start realizing that the real villain here is the red circle?
Why? Yeah, I mean, why is the red circle present at every cryptid sighting? What's the connection?
Right, every time. Is it planted by the Greys? I don't.
I think that red circles are portals, and you can see interdimensional cryptids through them.
That would make sense.
You heard it here first.
We're all under control by the red circle. I'm just saying, somebody should look into that.
That is it is my favorite thing to joke about when it comes to cryptozoology. Like, it doesn't matter how many red circles you add to like a photograph. Those leaves and bushes and shadows are still just leaves and bushes and shadows. Like, I am no closer to seeing this thing that isn't in the photo than I was before you added the red circle. Please stop.
Yeah. If you have to add a red circle, it's nothing.
Yes.
That's nothing. That was the other story. I didn't talk about it this week, and I'm not really going to talk about it too much. Oh, I said I had no news, but there was like somebody hiking somewhere in some mountain, and they took some selfie somewhere on the mountain. And in the background, there's allegedly a 20-foot tall humanoid climbing up the side of the mountain. And, pareidolia is very much a thing. We just keep acting like it's not. Everybody's running with that story right now. Like I said, I wasn't going to bring it up. What do I think of it? It's nothing. They had to zoom in so far to even find anything in the side of that mountain that looked even remotely humanoid. There's nothing that's 20 feet tall, and any that exists anywhere that we wouldn't know about. Anyway, I'm not getting into it. I'm just saying.
Sure.
Yeah. That's it. That's the news this week.
We did it.
We did the news.
Some classic newsing.
Some good newsing. But on other vague subjects, We keep talking about these orange orbs. They seem to be popping up all over the place. Well, not necessarily in general lately, but just like all the time, right? They've always been a part of high strangeness in some shape or fashion or whatever. So we decided to let's do an episode on the orange orbs. Now, of course, I posted my weekly question on my personal social media accounts. What do you guys think about the orange orbs? A lot of people, not a lot of people, but there people seem confused by what I meant, and that's a really good question because orange orbs have such a variety to them as far as placement and size and what they're doing and proximity to people and it can be a very vague topic. So oh my god, let's go there. Tobias, you have a history with orange orbs, right? You guys had an affair or something, you and orange orbs.
Well, okay. Because Emily doesn't listen to this, I will give you no, of course not. Um, yeah, I've received a lot of sightings of weird anomalous orbs. I got to tell you though, when you sent me the subject for today's episode, I saw that word orange, and I was like, well, but is that too narrow in scope? Because often people will report glowing orbs of other colors, or they will report orange orbs amidst a variety of colors, or even changing colors. And so, I almost wonder if you just have to say something like glowing orbs or anomalous glowing orbs or something similar. Uh, anyway, most often, yes, I would say that what people report are somewhere near orange on the color spectrum. It could be red, reddish orange. The next most popular, I think, is probably white, which makes a lot of sense because a lot of lights are white. So, sure.
And yes, I will. Yeah, I agree with you. There are a variety of orb colors that exist. But I think that there's something to be said about the orange orb. For whatever reason, it seems to be the king of all the orb.
It's very popular. Like I said, we have a lot
Yeah,
of specifically orange orb sightings. So let me see here. I had a bunch pulled up because again, I have received so many of these. I'm curious, actually, before I get into this. So you were
mhm,
talking about uh, listener feedback
yeah.
on orange orbs. What did people have to say beyond just sort of generally being confused?
About what that means. Yeah.
Yes.
Some people, it was a good mix. Some people took it in a paranormal sense. So, like orange orbs in a haunted house, right? What does that mean? Well, it's a dust speck. I agree with that. Um, some people took it in the interdimensional, theory. Orange orbs, what are they? Oh, they're portals, right? I think that's very popular. Somebody said fairies, which I thought, is also very interesting. Could be. And then, of course, UFOs, or even little UFOs, Um, so a big wide variety of answers from people. Of course, I don't expect anybody to know the answer to them because they are spotted in so many different ways, in so many
Well,
different forms.
yeah, no, sure. I'm. Hmm. Okay, so it sounds like what we've got so far is a lot of people trying to explain one mystery with another.
Yes.
Which, look, I got to tell you, that's a big pet peeve of mine. You just don't do it because describing, for instance, as an example, not to pick on anybody in particular, but trying to explain any particular phenomenon by saying it's a fairy gets us no closer to actually understanding it
No.
because nobody knows what fairies are. Now, I know, put down your pitchforks and torches, new age Wiccans and witches and such. There is a popular idea that fairies are elemental spirits and a bunch of other stuff that is totally unproven and doesn't necessarily match with much of the folklore we have surrounding them. But none of that is necessarily true. So,
Well, I have a question.
yeah.
So, elemental spirits are fairies, but not all fairies are elemental spirits.
Well, okay, what you say that like we know any of those things exist.
We're pretending that they do. In this case.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't think it's fair to say that, because elemental spirits actually can be traced back to like late medieval philosophers and alchemy, and that's their origins. You know, so you think of like Paracelsus, who literally coined the word gnome, to like, that wasn't a word before he made it up, to describe earth elementals, and this wasn't some fairy word. You know, this came down to like alchemical philosophy and sort of that early science, right? No matter how flawed it may have been, and I think it wasn't really adopted into modern lore until much later.
So,
Because you could. Oh, go ahead.
well, I'm just trying to understand, because I don't know. History is not my strong suit at all. That's why I had a historian for most of my career. So I was under the impression that fairies are much akin to the Japanese yokai, which for them, yokai are just monsters. Anything that's a monster is a yokai.
Yes.
So anything that's a touch of spiritual is a yokai. It doesn't necessarily have to be a monster. It's just anything
Right.
unexplainable is a yokai. So that's what I thought
Correct.
fairies were.
Yes. No, you're spot on.
Oh, okay, good.
And that's the issue I have when people will see something like this and go, "Oh, well, maybe it's fairies." Well, okay, tell me you don't know what fairies are without actually telling me you don't know what fairies are, because fairy is just a catch-all term for any weird thing, like any strange creature or phenomenon. You just, oh, it's fairies.
As opposed to like Tinkerbell.
Right, because that's fictional.
Right.
I mean, look, a cynical person would joke that it's all fictional, but I'm not a cynic, and I find it interesting that this folklore exists, and there is firm belief that has lasted centuries in these sorts of phenomena, and I also think that the similarities between these sort of folkloric phenomena and modern day phenomena are so widespread that it lends credence to the idea, at least, of some kind of external cause. That is to say, like, maybe there is something to fairies and the idea of fairies. And so, for instance, like I wrote about in the Singular Fortean Society's Yuletide Guide to High Strangeness, in comparing actually specifically these weird orange orb sightings to fairy lore, like there is overlap, and there is, or I should say, there are commonalities. Where you might think of something like ghost lights or will-o'-the-wisps or any number of weird anomalous lights associated with fairies. And I think in the book I compared a UFO flap to the wild hunt, which, I mean, again, on the surface, like, at least there are quite a few commonalities in the behavior of these phenomena. When you think of the wild hunt, essentially, what you've got is a number of spirits led by some kind of mythological figure. Could be Could be Odin, could be like Frau Perchta. There are a number of mythological beings said to lead this wild hunt, and basically it is this hunt that during certain times of year will be led all over the land, basically, and it's the last damn thing you ever want to run into. And it occurred to me that to ancient peoples, right? And by ancient peoples, I mean our ancestors of several hundred years ago. So ancient probably isn't the right word. But to these folks who were telling these stories that, that created this lore as a sort of way to try to explain something that they didn't understand, it, I think, would make sense if you saw a bunch of orange lights that you couldn't explain, like flitting around through the forest or something. Maybe you would interpret that as the lanterns or torches of some kind of wild hunt, right? Like maybe that would contribute to that mythology, And so there's something there. And of course, there's a lot of overlap between that and fairy stories. And so I think there is something to it. What that thing is anybody's guess right now, but you can't just say something is fairies as though that explains it, because that just makes it just raises so many more questions.
I gotta say, Tobias, my one of my favorite things about you as a person is that at any given time, you are so ready to talk about the wild hunt. I love that.
At the drop of a hat. I'll fit it into anything.
Well, like if I got to meet you like over and over again, I'd imagine you'd always be that guy. And our first conversation we have has something to do with Wild Hunt, and I'm like, oh wow,
right? Like that guy, he always finds a way to bring up the Wild Hunt. So weird.
It's pretty metal, actually. So,
thank you.
Keep that shit up, is what I'm saying.
Right.
But yeah, no, definitely. I mean, so the people that attribute these orange orbs to fairies aren't necessarily, you understand why they would. I understand why they would attribute it to any of these things, to be honest. But I think. Oh, go ahead.
I just think that they are misled because they have this new age spirituality understanding of fairies, which is not rooted in good scholarship.
That's fair. I think that's very fair. And, we're going to get that though, right? We're going to get that when we ask the general public these questions. But that's why we do. I want to gauge where you guys are at and what you think about these topics that we're talking about. And, I want to know exactly how much we're going to blow your minds when we talk about them. So,
True.
And listen, there's going to be a lot this episode. Tobias, you mentioned explaining, this mystery with another mystery. There's going to be a lot of that. We're going to be talking about Skinwalker Ranch at some point. Tobias is going to share some stories with us. I have a story about a frogman at that. You're going to love it. You guys are going to love it. So
one other thing, like before we move on, that I wanted to touch on with the listener responses. So somebody answered UFOs. Okay. So on the one hand, yes, they are by definition unidentified flying objects.
Yeah.
But did they mean extraterrestrial craft? Because that happens way too often.
Probably yes. I would assume yes. That is what they mean, which of course we don't know if it's just then a light source. I mean, but that's the thing about we don't fucking know what they are. Let's just say that first and foremost. You're not going to listen to this episode and walk away knowing what the mystery of the orange orb is, or any orb for that matter. Because if we knew, you guys would be paying a lot more for the Patreon than you're going to be paying. So
True.
We would be people that could ask for that.
Truth ain't cheap. Well, I mean, you can just do what most people do and lie.
Just make
something up. Yeah, just make it up.
Oh man, that's a good idea. I'm gonna have to come up with something clever. Fuck. Yeah. Well, maybe you will. Maybe at the end of this, you'll know what the orange, and you can walk away with full confidence knowing what it is, and anybody else is wrong. But that is the thing about these things. So some of the speculation we have at play are It's UFOs. Well, it's UFOs until it's really small, right? Is it tiny UFOs? No, okay, then a UFO just has orange lights on it. That happens. Or whatever, some other lights on it that make it glow. I understand UFOs using lights like we do. Or it's something spiritual, fairies, but like Tobias said, that's kind of more rooted in a common day and common era thinking. We'll get into it. I don't know. Right off the rip, what's the deal with these things besides anecdotal evidence? You know what I mean? We've got all these people that claim to see these things in a wide variety. One sighting I want to bring up are in the woods, like you said, ghost lights. That is very popular. Like that's super rich, at minimum from what I know in Appalachian lore. Like that's a big fucking deal. People see these things just fucking floating around the woods. I mean, what's the deal with that? What are they doing out there?
Sure. Well, what's interesting about that specifically, and you get that here in Wisconsin too, in the southeastern part of the state specifically, in the Kettle Moraine State Forest area, you will find reports of these anomalous glowing orbs in the same areas that you will see reports of Bigfoot activity, for instance, or even Dogman.
Mhm.
And so something that has become increasingly popular is the idea that there might be some kind of link between these glowing orbs and other kinds of weird phenomena, right? And nobody seems to know what that connection is, only that it is an increasingly popular connection to make, and that people love to use it as an excuse to open the door fully into woo and invite every weird possible hypothesis in once that has happened. So people will talk about things like anomalous glowing orbs in the proximity of Bigfoot sightings and then use that as evidence of like the interdimensionality of Sasquatch or something similar. And I'm not saying that Sasquatch isn't interdimensional. I have no idea. I'll have to ask one, but also that's not it's not awesome evidence of anything other than two weird things maybe happening in the same place. But yeah, it's caught on. That's for sure.
Yeah, I know, and well, I've heard tale of these tales. I've never gotten a report that has these orbs mentioned alongside, specifically a cryptid. I have gotten them for other like supernatural things, but I've never gotten a Bigfoot story with orbs. But I've heard of Bigfoot stories where Bigfoot's like carrying orbs or some shit.
Carrying orbs?
Yeah, like carrying around orbs. And
like cradling them like they're little babies?
Yeah, like he's pulling them out of his pocket, he's munching on them, he usually just is like kind of harnessing them in his hands. And
what?
Yeah,
what?
like yeah. And he doesn't like do anything with them. He's like throw them at people.
Is he juggling them?
He's just, he's he's just throwing them around. And I've never gotten one of those reports. I can't say they don't exist. Obviously, somewhere they do, but again, it's always like third-hand information or even fucking fourth-hand information.
I have never heard of anybody talking about Bigfoot just like carrying orbs around. And the idea, I can't believe that I haven't heard of this because the idea is so entertaining to me.
Yes.
That he's just got them. And like he's like somehow Bigfoot's got pockets in his fur and he's just like pulling orbs out and he's just like, what do you think of these orbs?
He's holding them up to his chest like, look at my orbs.
Right. Yeah. Just holds them up to his chest and just like, hey, what do these look like?
He's like, my orbs are down here.
Right. Just like, okay, Bigfoot, we get it. You're like 12. My God.
Down. Yeah. Calm down.
Grow up, dude. Real mature Bigfoot.
Okay, big orbs.
Right. Like that's just my new favorite thing. That's what I see. I was just picturing like the Patterson Gimlin film, but Patty's got like an orb in each hand and she's just walking with them.
Just walking with her orbs, right? Like
Yeah.
bowling balls. Yeah. I mean, that, but no, back when I used to think that podcast, was a great place to get information. This one is, the other ones aren't. Um, people would tell stories like that. And, you'd have people that would go on these shows and tell stories like that. Or like they'd be, chased by a pack of dogmen and also seeing the strange ghost lights in the woods, or, but again, how credible are these? I can't vouch for the credibility of it. So, until I can personally try to start taking on some reports that involve that, I'm open to the idea. I definitely have to err on the side of skepticism, or I would be terrible at my job. Most of these weird encounters seem to stem from a guy, like a particular guy, Ronnie LeBlanc. Do you know who this guy is?
I mean, kind of. I know him through social media.
I know he's more of a Paris celebrity, but he has written some books, specifically a book, Monsterland: Encounters with UFOs, Bigfoot, and Orange Orbs. So I'm sure he has a lot more valuable information. I will probably read it one of these days. It sounds right up my alley. But because he's a Paris celebrity, who knows? We know how the track record is for those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know him super well. Like, we're friends on Facebook, I think. Seems nice enough. We've got a lot of mutual friends for sure.
Yeah.
So.
And, who knows? Maybe I'll fucking have egg on my face and the dude knows his shit. Maybe he gets all these stories all the time of Bigfoot harnessing their orange orbs and walking around and strutting it. I don't know.
Right.
But
we kid. I will say this: if you're into, say, like the work of John Keel, like if you are interested in ultra terrestrials, the one thing, and I gotta keep banging this damn drum because people forget about this all the time. The one thing you got to remember about Keel's ultra terrestrials is that they never looked like what they appeared to be to the witness. It's like that's never what they actually look like. What they actually are supposed to look like are, you guessed it, glowing orbs. So when you have these glowing orbs in the vicinity of a Bigfoot or a dogman or whatever kind of sighting, then I think it is fair to speculate, at least as like, a thought exercise, like some kind of fun thought experiment about something like ultra terrestrials. And is there other evidence present that could point to that as a possibility? So, for instance, are people seeing these orbs in the same location as Bigfoot, just as an example, because some or all Bigfoot are actually these like archetypal representations of the wild man as it exists in human culture being reflected back at us by ultra terrestrials for their own weird ultra terrestrial reasons. So food for thought, I guess. It is something that I think people should be aware of when they're considering this kind of stuff.
yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. I think it's super interesting, to think of it that way. It's just that, I've never come across it. That's all I'm saying.
Sure. I mean, I don't have proof for any of this. I like to just say the weirdest thing I can think of at any given time, especially if it's somehow related to the wild hunt.
Of course.
And then I just go from there.
So that is a potential. These orange orbs are some type of sentient being. Which when we see them in close proximity or during events of other instances of high strangeness, it could be because the orange orbs are responsible for that.
I've got an interesting report involving sentient or seemingly sentient orange orbs, if you want to hear it.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so this came from Shane Taylor, who, let's see, was 44 at the time of reporting this. So I think he'd be 46 now. And he wanted to tell me about an encounter with a multitude of seemingly friendly orange orbs he'd had on Christmas Eve of 2014. So he was driving on Zion Church Road near Hickory, North Carolina at around 8 p.m. on Christmas Eve when an orange ball of light crossed quickly in front of him. So he's driving along and he sees this orange ball of light like zip by him in front, across
It's
the
like, oh,
road.
excuse me.
I know, right? It's
Pardon
just like,
me.
yeah, what is it? Like a fucking deer or something? Like, stay out of the road.
Go up. It's like the damn birds. This past year, birds, man, they always wanted to fly in front of my car. Suicidal birds this year were on the rise, and it's like,
Birds.
you motherfuckers can fly. Like, go around. Anyway,
Right?
I digress.
Yeah, well, and it's so selfish. Don't include me in your traumatic suicide.
Right.
I don't need that stain on my soul. Good Lord.
Or on the grill of my car.
Life is right, but I'm dumb. Life is hard enough, is all I'm saying. Anyway, so he's going at a pretty good clip during this. He's driving like 55. And so he just sees this orange ball of light real quick, like whizzes right by him. And so he pulls his vehicle over next to this empty field and gets out and sees about a dozen of these silent, luminescent orbs. He described them as being about the size of cantaloupes. And they're all kind of grouped together and floating nearby. Some of them were floating at eye level, he said, while others were a little higher than that, but they're all close enough to where he thought that if he had reached out, he could have touched one. Now, wisely, he did not try to touch one because I don't know how that would go. But that's how close they were. So each of these lights would grow brighter or dimmer, seemingly at random, while some hovered and others moved gracefully through the air. So some of them were kind of stationary, hovering. Others were moving around. They would get brighter or dimmer. And he interpreted that as sort of proof of life. He interpreted it as a sort of language almost, I think, where this behavior to him seemed to indicate intelligence. And he described it as the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Like that's what he said to me. Literally said their movements were the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Really graceful, like a butterfly. So it's clear that whatever this was, it had some kind of impact on Shane. So he's standing there and he's looking at these orbs, and he noticed that their insides seemed to kind of look like he described it as the guts inside of a light bulb. So like there was something, I guess something like a filament or similar inside of these orbs, and he said, it's not light, it was some kind of structure. So I think what he's trying to get at is that there was some kind of material object that was glowing, and that the orbs weren't just composed of light somehow. Like they weren't just cohesive light. There was something more solid in there. And he thought that right up until when they started to dim out, and then he could see that there was no substance there, which is weird and seems contradictory. But I think what he was trying to say was, at first, because I talked to him directly and clarified. At first, it seemed like there was some kind of substance to these until they dimmed all the way out. And at that point, because they seemed to disappear completely, he decided there couldn't really be any kind of solid structure. So that's interesting, because when I'm taking a report, I always err on the side of including too much, where I try to include as much of the witness's testimony as I can if it has any kind of relevancy. I mean, you have to trim it down to what is most important for authentically relating their experience. But I like to leave in as many weird details as possible because I think that there could be some sort of hidden insight. I don't know what that could be in this case, but it seemed interesting enough to include. Anyway, so he's awestruck, right? And he watches these orange orbs for several minutes until they all kind of gather together and then just leave. And he said the only time he noticed like a real pattern in like their movements was when they left, they all flew into the same general area and then flew away in a line. And he watched them until they blinked out. So like they start flying away in a line and then they blink out and then they're gone. And overall, he experienced this as friendly seeming. Like that was his takeaway. He thought it was weird, but ultimately friendly. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, he talks a little bit more about like it being Christmas Eve and stopping by this church parking lot to talk to these people who were outside to see if they saw it, but they mostly just made fun of him, which is shitty, but you know, it happens all the time.
He shows up. He's like, "Did you guys see those orbs floating around?" They're like, "This fucking guy, he's drunk."
Right. Well, the best part was like they're Christians on Christmas Eve at a parking lot.
Right.
And the best thing they can do when somebody shows up is to make fun of them because they're making like Santa Claus and reindeer jokes and stuff. I think he said there was one or two ladies there who were nice and like took him seriously.
Yeah.
But I'm just picturing just these real jackasses who, if they ever knew what the point was to Christianity, had forgotten it long ago. And they're just going through the motions. Maybe it's a community thing or whatever to them. And they're just like, what's the least Christ-like thing I can do on this day, the eve of the birth of our Savior? Oh, I know. Be a total asshole to this stranger, just like Jesus would have wanted. Ridiculous. The other interesting thing about this sighting was that he got conjunctivitis. So the next day on Christmas, he said he woke up to his eyes almost swollen shut. And they were burning and red, and they stayed like that for 2 or 3 days. So this is, speaking of Keel, this is another thing that we would see commonly reported, at least in the reports that he would share of people who had seen these like weird lights or UFOs, or sometimes even cryptids and monsters and things, which I think he kind of used as evidence in favor of his ultra-terrestrial hypothesis. So if these glowing orbs are kind of the, you know, quote unquote true form, or the closest thing we're capable of perceiving with our limited human senses of ultra-terrestrials, and that is to say every single paranormal thing on the planet, according to Keel, then you would see this this common phenomenon of conjunctivitis between them, or at least it should pop up fairly regularly. I got to tell you though, this is the only case of conjunctivitis of probably over a dozen of these orb sightings that I've ever received. So who knows? Maybe you just have to be close enough. Like he was within a couple of feet, and most witnesses are not that close, like nowhere near that close. So who knows if that has anything to do with it, but intelligent orbs. Oh, interestingly enough, one other thing real quick, and then I'm going to stop talking for a minute, is this sighting that Shane had took place during a major UFO flap on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day of 2014. And I verified this. So according to the National UFO Reporting Center, dozens of UFOs matching this description, so like red or orange orbs, were reported on those 2 days, all across the country, kind of coast to coast. It was this weird 2-day flap of like red and orange orb sightings. So there was at least a couple dozen that I found. So who knows? Interesting stuff.
That is really interesting. I like, how they're all congregating and like they're obviously having some type of conversation. And I think they were talking about him.
Yeah, right. Just like who is this guy? Can somebody ask him to leave? He's making me uncomfortable.
The one that crossed the road shows up and he's like, oh shit, I almost got hit by a car. And then the guy gets out of the car and comes up and they're like, oh shit, he's gonna start shit with us. Oh no.
Yeah, right.
This guy's
am I gonna have
mad.
to fight this guy?
What should we do? Well, if we all just band together and just kind of float away, maybe he won't chase us. Okay, sounds good.
Poor orbs.
But going off the conjunctivitis situation, some people theorize that these orbs are were made up of radiation of some sorts.
Sure.
That they're radiated. But like you said, it doesn't always happen in every case. It does seem to happen a decent amount. Again, it's not like we have one dedicated reporting center for these orbs that can look at all the data and make a clear pattern. But that is one theory for sure, I guess. But again, to my knowledge, nobody's ever gone out with their Geiger counter and measured the radiation coming off of one of these orbs. So without that data,
right? I mean, you would have to have it on you during your sighting and then get close enough to use it, because the half-life on that kind of radiation is way too short.
Oh yeah,
for you to probably come back and be able to get it. It is interesting though, and I think certainly Keel was one of those people.
Yeah.
Who thought that? He had the idea of the super spectrum and ultra terrestrials sort of existing in a weird frequency and being able to manipulate electromagnetic fields and similar. And so, I believe that was sort of his explanation for the conjunctivitis too. But again, in this case, this is the only one I've ever received where the person describes having that with this or in association with an orange orb sighting. But again, this is also the only one where the witness has gotten this close. So
yeah, right.
Could be related.
I think it's a decent theory. Why not? Again, we just don't have the means to measure it properly, but I think it's okay. I can jive with that. So is this the closest orb report that you've received, like in proximity to the experiencer?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Easily. I mean, like he was close enough to touch them.
Yeah.
And that is very unusual in my experience. That almost never happens. The next closest would have been, I spoke to a woman in, this was Kenosha, Wisconsin, actually. Let's see. So I think she was in, Kenosha, Wisconsin. And she said that back in 2009, she awoke to find a charcoal colored cloud shape emanating an amber light near the ceiling of her bedroom. So still close, not close enough to touch, in the opposite corner of a bedroom. And so this looked like it looked like a charcoal colored cloud with like this amber orb emanating light within it.
Interesting.
Right. And I mean, again, I spoke to her directly. It's another weird case. It was summertime and she remembers it was the middle of the night and she just woke up, and she doesn't normally wake up, and she really couldn't say what it was that woke her up because there was no noise or anything. She just kind of seemed to suddenly be awake. And she looks at the foot of her bed near the ceiling. There's a corner wall with like built-in dressers, and next to the built-in dressers was a window that had like a window air conditioner in it. And there were little cracks of light on both sides of where the window air conditioner fits into the window. There's like a little gap there.
Sure.
And so in that corner on the ceiling, there was this object that she guessed was probably about 4 feet wide by 2 or 3 feet tall, sitting near the top of the ceiling. So that's the dimensions of the charcoal colored cloud, right? So it wasn't like she didn't want me to think that it was like a cloud, right? But it was cloud shaped because it had a kind of puffiness around it, but it looked solid, like a solid charcoal color. And then inside of it, there was this amber light, like kind of emanating from the inside out. And so she said that she could see gradations of the amber light from the inside to the outside of the charcoal cloud. And so, like, she's looking at this thing, this weird, impossible thing, right? And she had just woken up. And so at first she's just like, I'm asleep. I'm dreaming. I have to be. I'm just going to close my eyes. And when I wake up, it'll be gone. So she closes her eyes and she can't get back to sleep. So she kind of peeks and it's still there. Like she can't get back to sleep. She kind of like cracks her eyelid a little bit to be able to look. And the damn thing is still there. And so at this point, like she's fully awake. She's sure of it. She's like rubbing her eyes, pinching herself, completely awake. And she's looking at this thing and she's just like, I don't know what the hell this is. And so she doesn't know what to do about it. Like, what do you do in this situation? And so she like turns over and waits like 20 minutes. And she's like, it's got to fade away, because like if it's not part of a dream, it must be a hallucination. And so she like rolls over and she's like, lying in bed for another 20 minutes. And she turns over again and the damn thing is still there.
Oh, wow.
And she says it's not moving. And eventually she must have fallen asleep because the next thing she knows, it's the following morning and it's gone. And so she looks around and she's trying to find any explanation for this, like any sort of light source, anything that it could have been reflecting off of. And there's no way it could have been light from outside because just not enough would have been able to get in with the window air condition, like with the window unit air conditioner there. There's no other light source that could have caused it. There was no light source certainly bright enough to have caused it. It's just weird. It's just this inexplicable thing. And she doesn't know what the hell it was about. Like, and what's interesting about this witness in particular too, is that she's had other weird experiences. Like she kind of grew up in a haunted house where there were some weird paranormal experiences, which were ongoing. Like she had experienced stuff there relatively recently to when I had spoken to her. And so this isn't an isolated event in terms of the paranormal quality of it, but certainly in terms of the description of the phenomenon. And I'd never heard of anything like that before, and I still haven't. Like this amber colored orb inside of a cloud, new to me.
I mean, but what she didn't see inside of that cloud, let's be honest, we both know.
Was it the Wild Hunt?
It was the Wild Hunt. No, not this time. This time, it was a fucking one of the mantoid fucking aliens, and yep, and the amber glow was the friction.
Oh no! Oh, mantis cock, so gross.
They were trying something new, right? They're like, people keep seeing us. They know we're here. We don't want them to know we're here. We just want to know that they're there.
Look, I'm not going to kink shame anybody. Far be it from me. But that mantis cock did not have clear consent.
They never do.
So screw those guys.
I think that's part of the kink,
Not cool, man. Not cool. That's all I'm saying.
No, but really, that is that's fucking weird. That's what it is.
Yeah,
that's real fucking weird.
You know what else is weird? One of the haunted house things that would happen when they were growing up is her brother would constantly wake up in their basement, and his parents were just like, "What the hell? Why do you keep waking up in the basement? Like, what are you doing down there?" And he's like, "I don't know. Sometimes at night, a man comes and gets me and picks me up out of bed and carries me down here." Right. I mean, there's nothing. Nobody talked about any weird molestation stuff or anything, so nobody needs to go there necessarily. But I was just like, that is some like alien abduction level screen memory stuff to me.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing that immediately occurred to me. And look, okay, it would be hypocritical for me to go on this whole rant about people like misinterpreting fairy lore and not understanding what it really represents, and then to just say, "Oh, it's alien abduction screen memories," like that explains anything. But that's just the first thing that occurred to me was like that narrative and how often you see that narrative applied within ufology, and so to me what that represented was a possible connection between ghosts and hauntings and alien abduction, where you've got this child being removed from his bed and taken somewhere else. And was he taken to someplace beyond the basement? We don't know because he doesn't have good memory of it. So who knows, honestly? But if
Yeah.
nothing else, there is that sort of surface level similarity of being removed from bed by something for some strange reason.
Well, and then this weird cloud situation, orb cloud situation. I mean, you don't get that in a lot of haunted houses,
Not
So I
often.
hear.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to a woman up in Rogers, Minnesota, a few years ago who had repeated sightings of shadow people
Mhm.
sort of surrounding her grandson, and they seemed to be like watching him while he slept. And also in that house, they had reported seeing anomalous balls of light. And so that was her and a couple of her kids had seen like weird balls of light. And eventually they all saw these weird shadow people, and they seemed to kind of be centered around the grandson and just creepily watching him while he slept. And that really resonated with me because that mirrors my own experiences to a large extent, right? Especially of being a kid. And so I thought that was just the strangest damn thing. But again, you've got weird glowing orbs associated with other strange phenomena, with other seemingly paranormal events. And if there's one consistency among orb sightings, it's that. It's that they are very commonly associated with other types of paranormal phenomena.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of what, we've been getting at is that it's not just the orbs most of the time. Sometimes it is even weirder. So let's make it really weird. You ready to get really weird with it?
Yeah, obviously. Sure.
Here's my Frogman story.
Okay.
And we all love Frogman. Who doesn't love a good Frogman? So I went on, a search for other frogmen that were outside of Ohio. That was my presentation this year at the Loveland Frogman Festival. It was about other frog humanoids around the world. And so I came across a report that was reported to MUFON. This happened in the 1980s in Phoenix, Arizona, to a young woman who I don't have the name of. It's not important, but she was going to the neighbor's house. She was going from her mom's house to her neighbor's house. Now, this is an adult woman, so she's not an imaginative child. And while she is crossing, down the road to go to the neighbor's house, she sees an orange orb in the sky. And this is more of the UFO type in a way. So the orb is kind of getting closer and closer, to her. And as it continues to get closer, she initially thought it was like an eye opening up in the center of the orb. But it wasn't. It seemed to be some type of maybe window or door. And she could see this strange frog-like creature that was sitting at a control panel, seemingly controlling this orb. Now, she, of course, is freaked out. She's like, what the fuck is going on? And her mom actually comes outside for a second, and she went to go, hey, Mom, look at this. But as she started to do that, the frog creature spoke with her telepathically and said, "Don't tell her." It was like,
What?
don't do it. Yeah. Don't say
Don't
anything.
tell me what to do, frog creature. You're not my dad.
That's why I love this story. Yeah, he says, "Don't tell her." And then slowly closes the eye back up in his orb ship and takes off. And that's it. I mean, what the fuck? Now, the description of like the craft itself is weird because she said it was just like a ball of light, and the way she describes that whatever it is opening up, like I said, it's more like an eye opening up. So it's, in this case, it kind of seems to be more of a bad camouflage. I don't know. But it seems technological.
How big was this thing again?
I don't think there was a size listed, but it was big, I suppose. I'd imagine. I guess it wasn't like tiny.
I mean, it fit a whole ass frogman in it, right?
Right. Right. There was at least one frogman in it. But it was in the sky. So I don't know if maybe the size just wasn't, it's hard to gauge size, right, when it's in the sky. The mom never reported her seeing it. I don't think the mom ever did report it. I mean, obviously she did tell, but she ended up telling it to move on.
Right.
So.
Well, interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess certainly in that case, it sounds like some kind of, oh boy, I don't know, technological device anyway, right?
Right.
Being piloted.
Yeah, like it's definitely some type of craft, but like what does that mean? You have this orb light. Again, is it some type of bad camouflage, maybe to look like the sun, right? I don't know. Is it some shield, a force field? Is it something they have to use in order to travel? And that's why people often, when they'll have these, UFO reports, they have these orange orb UFO reports. Maybe that's what they're saying. I don't know, but fucking weird. But you know what?
Weird.
I've never heard a frogman story that isn't fucking weird. So
that's fair. I mean, they are usually, I mean, by their very nature of being frogman related, have got to be super weird.
And then he's like, "Don't tell." Like, what the fuck? I'm not going to keep your secret. My guy, I don't know you.
Dude, yeah, I mean, whatever, fucking frogman. Just get in the corner with the mantis cucks and the other creepy weirdos who want to tell us what to do and don't care about consent. It's 2024, man. That dog won't hunt, all right? You can't just boss us around and be creepy.
Yeah. You need to get on the level, frogmen and other creepy weirdos. But yeah, just it's such a fucking, it's so bizarre, and that's it. That's the sighting. And I haven't found anything like it. I found other frog humanoids, of course, but nothing quite like that. I don't think any of them have ever spoken. I think that's the first report that I got where they spoke just to one of the people. So,
boy, there's a guy out of. Let me see if I can find it real quick. It's right. Oh, here we go. So there's a guy out of North Carolina. Okay, so Carolinas with the weird orbs, apparently. Christopher Bledsoe. Are you familiar with him at all?
The name sounds familiar.
Right, I thought that too. Now, this is a story that came out last year, so summer of 2023, and basically he claims to have had a series of ongoing, really weird orb sightings. And so they began when he was at a particular low point in his life. He was on this fishing trip, and he saw these orbs, and I guess his son saw some orbs, and he got really scared about it. And then I know that sounds really flippant, and I didn't mean it to be, but I also don't want to go into like excruciating detail because it's not super relevant. But anyway, so they had this really impactful experience seeing orbs while in the woods on this fishing trip. And ever since then, he says, these orbs just will keep flying over his house, And so he's sort of in constant contact with them. And he even claims to have had communication with these entities, or at least whatever is behind them. So, for instance, one of these took the form of a beautiful glowing woman floating 3 feet above the ground. So this glowing woman shows up. She's wearing a white dress. She's super beautiful, I guess. And she looks at him and she says, "You know why I am here." That's what I think she sounds like. "You know why I am here. If you do this, I will always be with you and help you. I will help you with witnesses." Which, again, I'm assuming is a spot on impression of exactly how she sounded.
It's pretty good, yeah.
Right. And so so she actually appeared at a point, I think, where he's sort of trying to decide how he wants to deal with these sightings because he had been shunned and ridiculed when trying to tell his family's story to the community. So he kind of kept it a secret until 2012 when this glowing woman shows up and like gives him all this positive reinforcement and tells him to just, do what he's got to do. And that's when he was like, wow, now I can finally talk about my orbs. And so anyway, he's gone on to have supposedly captured like over 2,000 videos of glowing orbs flying over his house over the past couple of years. He spent 7 days with the crew of Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, where they tried to put him through all kinds of tests, I guess, and he said he could summon the orbs using prayer. So that's fun. But yeah, he is a person who claims to have had repeated contact with these orbs, and that contact, at least in some form, involved some kind of communication, even if it was with, Galadriel or whoever showing up glowing white.
I was going to say the ghost of Christmas past because that's what he sounded like, but...
Yeah, I mean, one of those. It doesn't matter. So, yeah, it wasn't necessarily an orb he spoke to, but she represented the orbs. She's like, she's their counsel or something. She's like the orbs lawyer.
So it's not the queen or the king even. It's the lawyer of the orbs. Well, you got to have some representation. That's smart.
Sure. I mean, she could have been the queen of the orbs. I don't know.
Was she hot?
He said that she was beautiful, the most beautiful woman he's ever seen. And you ever notice that, like, about so many of these weird contactee sightings where it's like almost never ugly people? Like, it could be a weird creature, and that's one thing. But if it's a human being or anything even like approaching a human being, they're always super hot. It's never like, yeah, I don't know, she was like a 6, I guess. Maybe like a Miami 5. But like, no, it's always like, oh yeah, hottest woman I've ever seen. Most beautiful person of all time. Like every single time. They're all tied for hottest person in the universe.
And it was totally special to her in that moment. It reminds me of oh my gosh, I don't remember which sequel it was, but in one of the Leprechaun movies, he makes the guy hallucinate that it's a hot woman and he's going to like motorboat her boobs, but her boobs are actually a lawnmower. I don't know if you remember that or not, but
yeah, don't steal his gold is the lesson there for people listening.
Yeah.
It's so easy not to steal a leprechaun's gold. Just like literally don't do it.
And then you'll be fine. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have to worry about motorboating a lawnmower.
Yeah. Sex appeal has its place and these things know us well. They know we love hot women and hot men even. Because I was going to say that, the initial, like, I'll bring you witnesses thing, kind of gives me, it gives me Indrid Cold vibes because that's pretty much what he said to Woody. He's like, go tell people about me and then I'll come and back up your story. And then he never did it.
Right. I know. What a dick. Like Valiant Thor was a handsome dude.
Yeah. Super handsome guy.
If they look human at all, they're never unattractive.
No, never. Not once. Oh, that's a good point. I've never heard of this guy. But like summoning orbs sounds really familiar. So maybe I have in a sense, but maybe I have if he
Well,
was
it's
involved
some
with.
CE5 shit is what it
Oh,
is. If you think about like
yeah,
Dr.
true.
Stephen Greer and CE5 experiments trying to use the power of consciousness to initiate contact with UFOs and alien beings. Like that's what it is. Like that's what it's super like reminiscent of. So if it seems familiar to people, that's probably why.
Because he's like totally ripping off CE5 and he's like, I invented this.
Yeah, right. I don't think he said that necessarily, but yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, he's just like, I was doing CE5 before it was cool, and you guys are all copying me.
Right, I'm the guy. But speaking of Skinwalker Ranch, of course we can't forget all of the orb activity at Skinwalker Ranch, which is fucking weird. Not Tobias, have you ever been to Skinwalker Ranch?
I have not. I saw that my friend Richard Estep was just there last weekend, but so hopefully he'll tell me about it. And maybe he saw some weird orbs or something. But no, I personally have not been.
Well, our producer went to Skinwalker Ranch and he actually fought one of the orbs with his bare hands.
That sounds right. I mean, Nate can fight a bear with his own hands, totally unarmed.
Yeah.
I've seen him do it.
Yeah, he reared back and he punched that orb so hard he knocked it into the next fucking galaxy. It's still trying to find its way back. So, if Richard didn't see any while he was there, that's why.
Okay. I'm kind of curious, and I know this is off topic, but if Nate had the chance to fight a dino beaver, because I'd like to see Nate knock a dino beaver out with one punch.
Yeah. Well, he could. We knew he could. So
right, and you can only do that at Skinwalker Ranch because where else are they?
Exactly. Right. They come out of the orbs there, and So anyway, yeah, no, I haven't gotten the chance to go yet. Eventually, I'll go. It's on the bucket list. But if you're familiar at all with Skinwalker Ranch and its history, the orbs really play a very significant part in all of this. Because it seems to be the most common phenomena that happens on the ranch, and not just that, the phenomena tends to be extra anomalous. There was an instance at one point, a couple of instances, but one in particular, when this first happened, where there was a series of blue orbs that actually killed the property owner's dog.
The blue meanies, yeah.
And ended up killing 3 dogs. I don't think all at the same time.
They call them blue meanies in the book for whatever reason.
Yeah, what the fuck is up with that? What are they doing? How are they killing? Did anybody see them kill the dogs? How do they know it was the dino beavers killing the dogs? What?
I would spend the rest of my life hunting somebody down if they killed my dog.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's so beyond the pale. Like, that's so far beyond what is acceptable to me. I will ruin both of our lives exacting vengeance if you mess with my dogs.
Right, leave my dogs alone. These motherfuckers got 3 of them.
Unbelievable.
So that's odd. I mean, that's really aside from the conjunctivitis that seems to happen sometimes, it seems to be the first instance I've heard of these things killing something.
Right.
Not to say that it's never happened before, but like, goddamn, those Skinwalker Ranch orbs, like, they're from the streets, man.
Things get pretty serious on Skinwalker Ranch, so you got to be ready.
And then of course my favorite story from Skinwalker Ranch are the things coming out, like the orbs, right? They're just watching the orb, and that's what they did. The NIDS team watched a lot of orbs, right. And in one instance, you had the guy with the binoculars looking at the orb, and things are coming out of one of the orbs. So in that instance, it is acting as some type of portal. And even though he was the only one to have seen things come out of the orbs, the other guy that was stationed with him at the tower they were at could hear the things running at them, or around them rather, but didn't actually see the things that were coming out of said orb. Fucking wild.
It is weird. Like, I've had a similar experience out in the kettle, right? Where we were in this clearing and we could all hear things moving around us. And they sounded big. They sounded like they were on 2 legs, and they were moving around us. but we never saw anything, and it was a really sort of eerie experience, as you can imagine. And again, this is an area where I've seen weird lights with my own two eyes. So fairly similar, actually. I mean, no
What about your
dino
other two
beavers.
eyes?
Well, those are private.
Oh,
But-
you gotta keep
right?
those covered.
Those are just for me. Okay. But yeah, no, I mean, like, there's no, I don't know, bulletproof wolves or dino beavers or anything. But like, in terms of the anomalous lights and like that
Yeah.
kind of associated high strangeness, like I've experienced that myself. Like it's weird.
Well, and kind of just bringing it back full circle a little bit, that really, I mean, Keel might have been onto something there, because that really kind of brings it back to some of his theories on this stuff. The fact that the Nid's person was the one with the binoculars could see the creatures, the other guy couldn't. I think they could both see the orb, but it just kind of goes to show that potentially this orb was the one controlling the situation, not just a portal for these creatures to come out of, but it was controlling the show and controlling who experienced what at that time.
Right.
Which is, that's the part that I get excited about when it comes to the phenomenon. I think that's so fucking interesting. It's weird, and I don't get the motive, but that's why I like it.
It is. I think that kind of strange, like perceptual phenomena where, it's only appearing to certain people and like only on its terms. I think that is really interesting. And I think that has a tendency to sort of fly under people's radar, and they just don't think about it enough because it's sort of inconvenient to a lot of narratives.
Yeah.
But I think it very much points towards that sort of Keelian ultra-terrestrial hypothesis involving like the direct manipulation of human consciousness into seeing whatever they want you to see.
Yeah. For whatever reason.
Right.
That just seems to be when you get really strange, particularly strange phenomena like this, that just really seems to be a huge part of the narrative. And I think you're right. People don't like it because, well, Tobias, you kind of even said it yourself. It's kind of just explaining a mystery with another mystery. But, at the end of the day, if we ignore that part of it, then we're ignoring a pattern. We're ignoring data. And that's not right either.
Well,
So.
I think more than it committing the sin of explaining one mystery with another, I think people don't like it because it challenges their pre-existing bias.
I agree.
I think they don't like it because they've already made up their minds what something is, even though they don't have enough evidence to make those kinds of determinations. And so any competing hypothesis, no matter how much supporting evidence, anecdotal or not, that exists for it is a threat.
Yeah.
And so they don't want anything to do with it. And you see that a lot. I mean, look, I get it. I'm something of a fun ruiner myself. Like, people have that reaction to me a lot. Like, nobody wants to hear about my opinions on fairies or the history of witchcraft or whatever. If they've already made up their mind and they're enjoying the LARP, they don't want me to come in and be a bummer about it. And so you get that reaction a lot to hypotheses like Keel's ultra-terrestrial hypothesis, because it upends everything people think they know about this stuff. And frankly, it does it in a way that I think is almost viscerally disturbing because of what it implies and the powerlessness that goes along with it. Because if ultra-terrestrials exist as Keel hypothesized, then there is nothing we can do about it. And beyond that, we may never be able to do anything about it because we may not even be physically capable of perceiving them in a way that would ever allow us to interact with them on anything other than their terms.
Yeah. It makes us it gives us no advantage at all. We are only at a disadvantage. And that's scary. It's very scary. It's a very scary concept to people. The good news is that while they do seem somewhat interested in this, it's very mild, because otherwise everybody would experience this weird shit all the time, and they don't.
Right. It's basically fine. Like, nobody's getting hurt, really.
Except for dogs, I guess, at fucking Skinwalker Ranch, so we got to do something about that, but...
I like to think that, I mean, those must have been the equivalent of, like, I don't know, they're violent felons or something, because that kind of stuff is so rare to hear about, you know? So I'm not willing to judge all of them based on the behavior of just a few blue orbs at Skinwalker. That would be like judging all of humanity by the actions of like just a few violent murderers or something, which would make a great Twilight Zone episode, but is not a very practical way to form policy.
It's like the blue orbs. They're blue because they're felons. Like,
right?
So you're like, oh, those are some bad orbs.
Gotta stay away from them blue orbs.
They're clearly bad people. You can go hang out with the orange ones because they'll just have they're afraid of you, apparently. They'll have a conversation and take off.
They're super chill. So, yeah.
No, I think, you know, and what I can say about Keel, while there's a lot of things that I disagree with Keel on, I can commend him because this kind of breaks the cycle a little bit and potentially maybe gives us an into a realistic, rooted in science theory, you know, somewhere. You know, it's explaining a mystery with another mystery, but because of the implications of it all, it does kind of break that cycle a little bit, and there really could be something to that. But
sure,
we just don't know enough to know.
Yeah, well, I think that, like, I would be hesitant to put the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis in the same category as explaining something away as fairies or you know, whatever. You know, I don't know that it really gets to the level of explaining one mystery with another to me, because I think what it is like, it's in hypothesis, and
yes.
Hypotheses are testable. And so what Keel was trying to formulate was this testable hypothesis. And that's why he talked about like the super spectrum and the measurables, like the measurable energy associated with these phenomena, be it expressed through something that you could detect with a Geiger counter or in EMF reader, or whether by whether it was expressed through physical symptoms like sunburns, you know, like, so mild radiation burns or conjunctivitis or something similar. So he, beyond somebody just sort of feeding their own narrative bias, he was really looking for a testable hypothesis. And so it's a different level for me. And I'm not saying that I buy it completely, because it's never been proven, but I don't think it's the same intellectual laziness that comes with the true trying to explain one mystery with another, personally.
Yeah. And like I said, at least gives us, we could still be totally fucking off the mark. Just not even know how wrong we are. But at minimum, it gives us a better jumping off point to try to study and understand this stuff a little bit more, because, you know, while it is a hypothesis, it's a very paradoxical hypothesis, because, you know, much like Q would tell you, we have no control over the experiment. So
right.
We can't really test it anyway. We can only do so much.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's next to impossible for us to predict. Mm-hmm. And so our only real means of gathering data is through like the analysis of experiences.
Yeah.
And
After the fact. Yeah.
yeah, there's not a lot of repeatability and all of this. So yeah, it is very, very difficult. But there are other phenomena, or really just quote unquote real world phenomena, that also uh, exist that way. If you look at like fields like psychology, where symptoms are pretty much, well, not always, but most often self-reported. It's very similar, where you're basically taking somebody's experience as it is described to you, and you are using that as evidence towards some conclusion. So there is a precedent in science for doing that, but yeah, it doesn't make anything easier. That's for sure.
So I look over at the chat and Nate said, "Oh, I fucked up some beavers in my time." And I was like, "Whoa." And I realized it was the dino beavers. And
Oh, I saw it when it happened, and I laughed a little bit, but I tried not to do it super loud because,
it was definitely out of
people would have been like,
context
why
for
is he
me.
laughing?
But good for you, Nate. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, right? High five.
Oh, that's so funny. So I mean, we've talked about these things as ultra terrestrials a lot. Potentially, we've talked about them as their own sentient beings, which is kind of in the same vein. We've talked about them in maybe being some type of coverage for craft, which we saw with the Frogman story. We also saw orb-shaped UFOs in the Berkshire UFO incident. We've seen them in other places like that.
Sure.
Are we missing anything?
I don't think so, honestly. I feel pretty good about this as far as episodes go.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it is, like I said, a very vague type of phenomena, because these could all be very different things that just happen to look very similar. Not all orbs have to be the same. That's racist. That's orbsist. Okay.
Hashtag not all orbs.
Not all orbs, right? They could be their own deal. We don't have to be like, well, obviously it's an orb and it has a color, so it's got to be this one thing. I mean, that's kind of the point of all this, again, is we don't know.
Right. Don't go profiling blue orbs just yet.
I mean, it's kind of hard not to, though. I'm just saying. But you're right. You shouldn't. Okay. They could have been all different, 3 different colors, and it wouldn't have mattered. They killed dogs, and I don't like them. I mean,
yeah,
that's
not
it doesn't
cool.
have anything to do with them being blue. Just saying.
Don't kill dogs.
Just don't kill dogs. Like, what's wrong with you? Don't do it. So yeah, I think we've covered pretty much a wide variety here of what people could expect with this type of topic. I'm sure we'll talk about them more in the future. I'm sure they'll come up. I'm sure we'll get more reports of them down the line. If you're curious, for whatever reason, as to what these orbs look like. Well, Tobias, you have a case with a picture, right? We can put that in the link, in the description, for people to go read that story, which I don't think we got to here in this account.
No, but it's. I mean, if you go and check out the article, and like you said, we'll link it. It's a pretty straightforward orb sighting. Really, actually, of multiple orbs at some distance. So, it's. I hate to use the word standard, but it kind of fits within that descriptive term, because it's just a very straightforward sighting of an anomalous light.
Mm-hmm.
So
I believe we covered it in the news on this show at one point.
We totally did.
Yeah. Which we'll do again in the future. I'm threatening you with it right now. It'll happen. Because this is never ending, and it's a widespread phenomenon. It is kind of strange that it's not talked about more often. It really is, because it's like almost everybody and their brother has an orb story, of some sort. But I think that maybe people just aren't really connecting the dots so much, because again, it's one of those other, it's called different things in different areas, and people attribute it to different things depending on what your cultural beliefs are. And that's fine. It is what it is,
Sure.
So any final thoughts on orbs?
I think we pretty much covered it. I guess if I would want people to take one thing away from this, it is that there is no one-size-fits-all explanation for this phenomenon. And really, you could say that about most phenomena that we study. And so keep an open mind. and to be willing to challenge your own beliefs and biases when examining these kinds of subjects, because right now we just don't know anything enough to make true definitive statements about what the nature of any of this is.
Yeah, absolutely. And if any of you are ever in the market to discuss the wild hunt, I know a guy. Hit me up.
I'm here for you.
And with that being said, guys, we'll see you back here next Wednesday.